I think we all punishment, y'all.
Yeah, you out of jail, man. You out of YouTube jail. You wasn't even in long enough to get your commissary money. You be done put an order in and had to give it away.
Peace, family, man. Welcome to Sankofa 180 degrees, man. We back at y'all again. How y'all doing, man? How y'all doing, man? I'm glad that everybody could be here. It's been a minute, man. We just got off punishment. Uh, so we back at y'all again, y'all. Come on in and join us. Don't forget that we got every first Sunday of every month, man. We got the children's book read. Uh, real good, real good stuff, man. We got some really good books. Um, uh, some really good readers, man. Real good readers, man. And it's really important that you guys join us, man, because like they're rewriting our history right in our face, without a doubt. You know what I'm saying? They even went so far as to ban different, black African, books. Uh, and and they've uh stopped the school system from teaching black African history. Right? That's here in Florida, and I hear that they're doing it in Virginia as well, and it's going to be in a state near you. All right, pretty soon. All right, so I'm just telling y'all what's happening. They're rewriting history. They said that slavery benefited slaves, and that somehow they gained experience. They got skills, excuse me. So they gained skills. So it did them good. Is what they're getting at. And we just know that that it was nothing like that. All right. Slaves didn't gain nothing from being a slave. Okay. All right. So I mean, for you to even say something like that should tell you something. You know what I mean? You know, so, you know, uh, so this is what we're up against, fam. You know what I'm saying? And it's important that we get our kids involved in this. We have to get our kids involved in this, man. I mean, because if our Black African history is lost, then what we gonna be doing, or what they gonna be doing, our kids is gonna be looking for facts and truth about actual real slavery, when slavery happened, man. You know, and just to know that, you know, uh, our history didn't start with slavery. Our history goes way back, right? Way back. Like there's no beginning. You see what I'm saying? We don't have a date. So all I'm saying is, uh, join us, man. It's important. It's very important. We just doing real history. We ain't doing nothing else. All right. Uh,
Well,
and
let, let
and
me
and
let me say let me say this part, man. So Don Jr. was just on the RNC convention, and they was upon introducing his dad, right? And um, he said that people are trying to change our history and what the children are learning, and we are not going to have it. Don Don Senior said we're going to promote uh, uh, Maganomics, and we're going to do everything we can to limit that inflection of uh, uh, the teachings that they don't like, right? So what they're saying is, and it is in my interpretation, it's anything that's going to be out there to contradict what we're doing, uh, we're going to eliminate it. So that tells me that the cyber world is going to be limited, right? So you better get all the information you can, man. Come over on Sankofa 180 degrees, and we're going to put it out there anyway.
we put it out there, man. It's real African history, man. History. So when you know history, no one can trick you with these little religious doctrines, man. As long as you know history, man. If you just got to know the history. It's we're in the information age right now. There's nothing you can't find out right now. You know what I'm saying? So and the information is out here, free. It's free, man. I mean, some of it is, you could buy them in books, but for the most part, you got PDFs, man. They got all kind of stuff out here, man, that you can read, and it's good information, man. Now, don't get me wrong, it's bad information out here too, right? But once you know the history, the real historical record, no one can trick you, man. Not even the ones that's on that garbage, right? No one can trick you. No one. And that goes for the kids, the babies, right? Once they know that history, our history, no one can fool them, man. No one can trick them. No one could trick them, man. It'd be impossible, right? You know, and I'm just saying, man, this is how we stay, keeping our culture and you know, living amongst each other, man, knowing how to treat your brother and your sister, man, right? That's what it's about, man. It's about knowing yourself, living in harmony, justice, freedom, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, food, clothing, shelter, man. That's what it's about, right? Come on, man. We gotta break from these other people's culture, man, and get back to ours. It was designed especially for us, right? And it only fits us. Listen, man, because it's us. I mean, look, man, all history is our history, man. Every piece of history is our history. Why not? You got to learn about it. You got to learn about it, man. And we got to keep the kids to know so we ain't sitting around. I mean, the kids that we talking about when they get our age, trying to figure out what happened. What happened? Did slavery really happen? Did it benefit the slaves like they saying it did? Like they got skills and it helped them, and so then they was able to live on their own because before that they was wild savages and didn't just run around, like crazy, right?
Spear chucking.
Oh man, it was nothing like that, man. And we need to know, we need to find out about that. We need to know about that in detail, man. And it's here. It's here, man. All we gotta do is just tune in to Sankofa 180 degrees, man. If you don't want to read, you know what I'm saying? If you don't want to read it, man, you ain't got the time, man. Just come on, tune in, man. Right? We're gonna read it for you. We're gonna read it for you, man. Or get it read for you, right? Hey, okay, so listen, man, I'm done. Hey, hey, peace to the panel, man. Gerald, Carrie, Eric, peace to the panel, man. How y'all doing, man? Gerald, man, I'm glad you're back, man. My man is here. What he got in Houston? That's right, Houston.
Really?
Talk
Good
to
to
him.
meet you. Good to be here. I ain't gonna talk too much. Good opening, Jamie. That was really nice. Good to meet you with your Uncle E and this little step away and Terry. But ready for this little presentation. And like I said earlier, happy to be here and follow my club.
That's right, Black Power, Black Love. Peace to you, Queen Carrie. How you doing, Queen?
I'm doing good. Good to see all of you. Good to see you, Gerald. And of course, Jamie and Lo and Eric. And I'm looking forward to the presentation too. And yeah, and learning more truth. That's what I like is I'm learning truth. And that's what we all need is to hear the truth. Thank you.
That's right, truth. That's what we need, man. And Eric, peace. I mean, you back yet? I don't know if you're back yet. He might not be back. Uh, but uh, but the brother Eric is transitioning, I think, from the car to home. Look like he's driving a spaceship, but he really, he might be though. He might be Eric. There ain't no telling with Eric. But hey, but peace to you, King. This the man of the hour. He got a presentation, for us, man. As always, hey, I don't care what it is, when it is. You know what I'm saying? If somebody can't present, somebody don't got, that wasn't prepared or whatever it was, like me. That was me. You know what I'm saying? Unc always got something. He always got something, man. And Gerald the same way, man. Actually everybody is. I'm the only one that's off balance sometimes. But hey,
Man, I was telling Carrie earlier, I said, man, any one of these boys can pull something off the deck, no doubt about it. It's just that, this is what we do, man. So, and I just want to remind everybody what I shared was not no conspiracy. There's people that believe in Donald Trump, man, so they know his shit is real, right? We know that motherfucker shit is real. It ain't honest, it ain't helpful, but nevertheless, that motherfucker's speaking his real game. And they said they gonna take that information out of circulation, right? So, fuck off and don't catch up on some of it now. Be trying to dig up something later, So anyways, we're gonna get on to Dr. Daud Malik Watts, and the subject is on Kemet. So let me get this plugged in. It's about an hour and 23 minutes, but we can stop along the way and interject and all that stuff. Just make sure you speak up clear enough so I can hear you. There's a little icon you can raise your hand, but we ain't even fuck with that, man. Just speak up. All right. Hour and 33 minutes. So we don't even gotta watch the whole thing, it's up to the panel. So
Turn on television. I want to talk about
you guys can hear that?
yep, I can hear it.
Okay, bet.
the people that populate not only Northern Africa, but explicitly populate the modern country known as Egypt, and compare those people that live there now. It's common that when all of the History Channel and Discovery, they're doing so many pieces on Egypt, there's the implication, it's implied that the people that populate Egypt now were the very people who populated ancient Egypt. Speak to that, please.
Well, I mean, one could argue, it's a similar kind of situation in America. How could you argue that the people who populated ancient America are the people who populate America now? Because America has been subject to a large degree of immigration. Kemet agriculture was the agricultural breadbasket of the ancient world, even though it was a river in the middle of the desert. Do you understand? Didn't rain, none of that stuff. It was almost a 900-mile long oasis that flooded every year because of the millions of tons of topsoil that came down from the Ethiopian mountains, the Ethiopian highlands, Lake Tana, pushed the topsoil up the river, flooded every year like clockwork, made it so easy to do agriculture that they had time after the agriculture was to develop their mines, and they were protected in the middle of the desert. So these Africans created the civilization based on the observations of nature, and the observations of the world that ultimately lead to astronomy, to medicine, not just, hocus pocus, but diagnostic medicine, surgery, herbal medicines, bone fractures, dentistry. All these things come right out of the Nile Valley civilization. So this was a very attractive place in the ancient world. Imagine 4,000 years ago, 2000 BC, you have these huge giant pyramids, great temples being built. the best food in the world. People are making salads, man. They invented salad there. You understand? They have writing, they have linen clothes, they have doctors. Herodotus, the Greek traveler, Greek writer, sometimes called the father of history, in 450, 430 BC. He writes that the whole land is full of doctors, and there's a different doctor for every ailment. So here we have people who are established on the historical scene. It becomes a place of immigration.
But before we go to immigration, did Herodotus allude to what these people look like that he
Oh
described?
yeah, Herodotus, in book 2 of the histories, Herodotus says that the people of Colchis are descendants of the Egyptians, because they have dark skin and woolly hair. Okay, now first of all, who's Colchis? Okay, what is Colchis? If you remember your ancient history, the first Greek writer is Homer. Homer writes in his book, The Odyssey, the story of Jason and the Argonauts. Okay, and they're looking for this golden fleece. And where is this golden fleece located? Colchis. Colchis is an area that's near the upper Mediterranean, I guess near Turkey, maybe modern Turkey, that area now. And in ancient times, I think it was Sesostris the first. I have to double check my notes on that. But who led armies from ancient Egypt there and populated, when armies stay in a place, their soldiers intermarry with the women and the rest. And so he's arguing, Herodotus in 450 BC is arguing that the Colchians, you can tell that they're Egyptians because they're black people. It's like if I went to Philadelphia right now and I went down to 12th and Vine, and I said, these people are descendants of the Chinese because they look like the Chinese. It's obvious. So in the ancient world, it was obvious that the Kemites were black. And the other thing is that all you have to do is look at the artifacts. They left literally millions of artifacts that said that they were African people. It's only later, when this greatness of their civilization is appropriated, the effort to make this something other than African comes as a result of many of the Egyptologists. And Sheikh Anta Diop wrote his The African Origins of Civilization, Myth or Reality, in part to refute those early Egyptologists who made it a point to try to deny the Negro African origins as much as possible. And so when you look at the nature, the origins of the African people in Kemet, in ancient Kemet, what we see is this hugely attractive land, a center of agriculture, center of science, center of population, that because of its attractiveness and its location on the Mediterranean, after other civilizations get better and stronger and more capable in terms of their military, more capable in terms of their organization, they organize to try to conquer different parts. So you have the Persians' invasion of Kemet, followed by the Greek invasion, who later had the Roman invasion. The Roman Empire changes from the Roman Empire to the Byzantine Empire because of the Christianity, and so you find that these people all find and try to control Egypt, as they do. And then after the Romans, after the Byzantines, you had the Arab expansion as well. So for this entire period of time, this rich land in the middle of the desert is controlled by a lot of foreign people over time. And you have a very gradual change in the ethnicity of the population, particularly as you go to the north. Okay, and so in fact, the Nubians, there's still many Nubians today. Nubians look just like other African people. And, the image that we get of Ethiopians, we tend to think that Ethiopians look like Haile Selassie, look like the Amharics. Ethiopians, man, Ethiopians has every type of black human being in the world represented in one country.
And you know what? I mean to jump in on it. One of the things that I have on my list that I want to get into, we're going to get into it. No matter how many times we get together, I want you to talk about it.
Okay.
I want to do a piece on what I'm calling the faces of Africa.
Oh, wonderful.
Debunk the myth that people have in their minds of the African is the only type of African being dark skin, coarse hair, broad nose, thick lips like mine, and to get into all the different kinds of looks of Africans.
Yes,
Because
that's true.
that's what Dr. Ben talked about when I
Right.
interviewed him.
Dr. Ben is his family's Ethiopian.
Right. See, Ethiopian Jew.
He's an Ethiopian Jew. If you think about it, mankind starts in Africa. Remember how the two things that we have to get in order to understand Africa at all: size and ancientness. Okay? Size and ancientness. Mankind starts in Africa. And it moves all over this huge place. And then it moves to other parts of the world. So when it moves to other parts of the world, mankind adapts to those parts and they start to change physically. They have limited gene pools, small communities, limited gene pools, and they start to look like those people in that area. Why doesn't that happen within Africa? And the answer is it does. So you really do have different types of Africans, different physical types of Africans. And that's good. I mean, my experience is interesting, my personal experience. Because I always tell people I'm not the darkest brother in the room. You know, and that's, I'm from DC. My father's your color. I look like my mother. You know, a lot of black people have these genetic, variety within their families. And we tend to think that this is the white man who did this because he raped our parents. In reality, when I went to West Africa, I lived there for about 6 years. My oldest daughter was born in Ghana. I met her mother in Sierra Leone, and I went there. People would, after I lost some of my Americanness, when I say the Americanness, we had this such absolutely negative image of Africa in our hearts. So I've seen brothers and sisters go over there and the people come up to them and say, I can't touch this person, I can't eat this. And these people are healthy and they're very good people. And I lost that sense of we are better than you, when I went over there, because we're not. We're all African. That's right. We take on European-centered racism relating to Africa. So I lost that stuff. After a while, I just lost all of it. People would come up to me from the States and they would think I was a Ghanaian. And Ghanaians are generally darker than me. It's because it's the spirit of that negativity is gone. People in Mali would come up to me and talk to me in Bambara or Fulani because I look like a Fulani man. That's who I look like. I look like a number of Bambaras. I could live there and speaking the language, no one would ever know that I am not an African just as much as any African on the face of the world. And that's what I learned. That's the lesson that I learned in Africa.
I want to go back though. I want to go back to Egypt because I want to be able to make the distinction based on historical fact, no revision, on the transformation of Egypt going back to the most ancient days of Egypt and all of its dynasties, and when the Hyksos, their efforts to come in, and when the Greeks finally came in I think around 332 BC, my recollection, if I have facts right, and then on into the Arabs in the 7th century.
But okay, look at the time frame we're talking about. See, that's the point. The point is, okay, if you wanted to say these people here, Americans, have been here, and they were the original Americans, of course they're not. Original Americans didn't look like them. Okay, and it's because they immigrated. And to some degree, and to a large degree in this country, colonized. But Kemet is a place where a lot of immigration took place over a long period of time. Now, how long is this period of time? Our sense of history is skewed in this country. We tend to think history in terms of 10, 20, 30-year periods. Not so in ancient history, not so in the world history. World history is measured sometimes in clumps of 400 and 500 years. Some of the dynasties that we talk about were like 400 years long. Our own sense of history doesn't put anything there. England has had a dynasty only 1,000 years. Okay, you understand? Before the Romans came into Europe, they were the barbarians. They were the Gauls, the Visigoths, the Goths. You understand? Their nations had not been conceptualized. So that's a period, that's only a couple thousand years. Kemet has a history that's 5,000 years long. It's not like the other places in the world. It has a much, much longer history. So you find that the Hyksos, if you want to bring that, the Hyksos were like undefined group of people for a couple hundred years. Mostly in the northern part, near the Delta, in the south, in the Delta area, a little south of the Delta. But Kemet is like this place where you got this great big huge Delta that would fit from Philadelphia to New York and cover everything in between.
Let me put it to you this way. There are some scholars, Eurocentric scholars primarily, who would argue that Egypt was a multicultural society. They'll own up to it being black, but only insofar as it being a multicultural society. At what point is there any Greek or European influx into Egypt?
Oh yeah, I mean there was a bit of Persian influx there. You find what happens. It's so different than we think. We think that the way that we see our history now is that Europeans have come into these various parts of the world and changed them and Europeanized them. Okay, and that's the way we see, for example, the American history. This place is now a European style place. South America has similar dynamics. In ancient Kemet, Kemet was more attractive than their own countries to them. You see what I'm saying? And so when the Greeks, for example, came into Kemet, they didn't suddenly make everything Greek. They did some things with language. They imitated and they emulated the Kemites. They started wearing Kemetic clothes, speaking the language, intermarrying with the Kemetic leaders, creating the Ptolemaic dynasty there. And there were other projects where the wealth that they accumulated there, made possible, like the Library of Alexandria, and places like that. But their own sense of it was that they were not making Kemet Greek. They were, in essence, making the Kemetic culture, making Greece subject to the Kemetic culture. A lot of times when we look at shake hands and jokes, two cradle theory, for example, and I know you've talked about this with a number of scholars before. You look at the northern cradle and the southern cradle. Some people would argue that the northern cradle is Europe and that the southern cradle is Africa and those places. But I don't think that's what he's saying at all. I think what he's saying is that there's a northern cradle, southern cradle, and zone of confluence. And the zones of confluence, really most of the Mediterranean is the zone of confluence, so that the Kemetic influence on Kemet is stronger than the Kemetic influence on Kemet. The Kemetic influence on Rome is stronger than the Roman influence on Kemet. The Kemetic influence on Greece is stronger than the Greek influence on Kemet. Although they control, or they colonize that.
At some point, we've got to be able to say to those people who turn on television and have no idea what he's talking about, Kemetic or Kemet, they have a clue what you're referring to when you say Kemet or Kemetic. You're talking about Egypt, what's commonly referred to as Egypt.
Ancient Egypt.
Right.
Ancient Egypt.
Right.
So the influence of ancient Egypt, of Kemet, on the Greeks was more profound than the Greek influence on ancient Kemet. In other words, look at who we are. See, what we don't understand is the contributions that these Africans made to the world that we still use today. Okay, what's your sign? What is your sign?
My astrological sign?
Your astrological sign. You're a Virgo. Okay, do you know you're a Virgo because of ancient Kemet? The signs that we have, the calendar that we have, they invented the calendar. There's 365.25 days, not a leap year every 4 days, but it was a precise measurement of the sky. Our entire sense of time is based on the sky. The sun goes from here to here and then comes up again. We call that a day. The sun moves, the day becomes long in this part of the season, and another part we call it seasons. All of these are based on precise measurements of the sky. And the thing to note is the equinox, when the day and the night are actually equal. All of that, those measurements were made in Egypt and they created the calendars that we have and the signs that relate to the calendars and the math that relates to the calculation of these round devices. In other words, their year was 360 days. 360 is what? The circle. And it's because of the circle. And then they added the other days for festival days, because that's really what happened. We tend to not understand that these fundamental signs, Libra is where the days are balanced and the equinoxes. Leo is when the lions came closer to settlements because it was a dry season. The flood season, you find Aquarius, you find, what's the other one in the flood season? Is it Cancer? There's another, Gemini, is when the twins, goats are born. Sagittarius, all of these are physically found in the artifacts of ancient Kemet. Their signs, their references, their times in the sky, what they represent, all is a part of African knowledge, systems of African knowledge development. So that when the Greeks come to this place, they don't know medicine. And Herodotus is saying, dang, man, they got doctors for the eye here and a doctor for the foot. And they specialize in a doctor for the teeth. We call them dentists and podiatrists and, ophthalmologists. But they had those kinds of levels of scientific specialty. They had scientists who understood mathematics. They invented pi, the sign for the circumference, for the formula. They invented these sciences, and the artifacts that prove that all these things were there prior to the Greeks or anybody else coming on the historical scene with any comparable knowledge. And there are also evidences that prove that these people were Africans at the same time, including their own artifacts, how they depicted themselves. Look at Tutankhamun in the 18th dynasty. This is a brother. You could take gold paint, put it on a school kid in Philly, and he looked just like Tutankhamun. But the new exhibit that's coming, they try so hard to not make these Africans, and that's part of the legacy, the racist legacy of early Egyptology that Sheikh Anta Diop critiques in the African origins of the African origins of civilization, myth or reality. And so when you go to these places and you look at the Greeks get their gods. I mean, W.E.B. Du Bois, anybody who writes, about these areas, African-centered writers in particular, point out that the Greeks got the names and the characteristics, the qualities of their god from the Kemites. How do you do that? How do you get the names of your gods from another people? These people had it better. And they said, wow, what is this called? They're saying this to the Egyptians. Look at Atlantis. What is Atlantis? Atlantis comes out of Kemet. Atlantis was, and this again, Sheikh Anta Diop does a wonderful job in Civilization of Barbarism. He has a small chapter about the Atlantis myth. The Kemites, the ancient Egyptians, told the Greeks, they said, your ancestors come from Atlantis, which was destroyed. And then they moved from Atlantis to Greece. This is what the Egyptians told the Greeks. And so what is Atlantis? There's this island in the Mediterranean called Santorini that exploded in about 1450 BC. And that was the Atlantis. That exploded, and it created a lot of things in the middle of the 14th and the middle of the 18th dynasty. It creates a sense of change of religion. It leads to Akhenaten in some ways in Kemet. Akhenaten leads to Moses. Moses leads to the Hebrew thing, which leads to the Bible. All of this, and Tutankhamun, all these guys were in the same place. And so we're looking at this integration of all these historical dynamics coming out of and being centered in Egypt. This was still 700 years before the Greeks.
You mentioned Sheikh Anta Diop a couple of times. I'd like to talk to you. I'd like for you to talk about his legacy a little.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sheikh, I never had.
We're gonna play 9 more minutes and we'll pause.
Dear brother, I wish I had, but through the grace of Allah, He has not. I did not get that. Sheikh Anta Diop was one of the treasures of Black scholarship. We have to fight for knowledge of self. If we're not careful and we just listen to what the media, which has this huge legacy of racist representation, if we have to wait for them to tell us who we are, we will never ever get it. We will always have negative images of ourselves, negative images of Africa, negative images of Black history. And we don't need to do that because the historical records themselves are full of positive images of Black history. Sheikh Anta Diop was one of the people who challenged the very central authors of this type of mythos of non-African history, of non-positive African history. He challenged the early Egyptologists, and he said, well, I can prove to you that these pharaohs and these other dignitaries were in fact African people simply by testing the melanin in their skin. And he was the director of the Radiocarbon Dating Institute in Senegal, which was IFAN, which was one of the early academic institutions. And his whole life, he challenged the racist perspective of Eurocentric knowledge construction of ancient Africa. His scholarship was so significant that when he passed, that the University of Dakar changed its name to Sheikh Anta Diop University. And his scholarship, and I really would recommend reading his works. He talks about how, as he talks, it gets into more than ancient subjects, how there's a cultural unity of Black Africa, and that this cultural unity actually makes a great difference in terms of understanding what the potential of Africa is. He points out that West Africa, which we've talked about, has the greatest hydroelectric potential in the world. You know, there's hope for African peoples. There's hope for us because once we understand who we are and what we have, you know, we can actually use that to construct positive project, positive major types of infrastructure developments, immigration to Africa. We can do all of that and create a basis for the development of African peoples that is based on reality. You know, I mean, we talk about the resources of Africa all the time. In reality, if knowledge is political, and we have to know who we are in order to own the unity which we all say we need.
Talk about that a little bit more. That's a fact. I've never heard that said before, even though it's a reality. Mm-hmm. Talk about the politics of knowledge.
Okay, the politics of what is it? I mean, see, I believe, and I strongly believe that we don't know what we don't know due to the politics of knowledge. I'll give you an example. Okay, we're from similar generation, right? You and I come from, we're old head. Okay, let's just put that right. We learned in the 70s. You know, all of us and many thousands of people out there picked up books and started reading, you know, and we all got this outline of African history, primarily based on Leo Hansberry's argument, you know, which we talked about a little while ago too, Chuck. Well, we got this argument that African history was about kings and queens and the rest of that kind of thing. People would walk around saying, we were kings and queens. In reality, that's not a strong enough basis to create the unity because we all weren't kings and queens. And if everybody's walking around with this mindset where they think they're going to be in charge, then they're missing the boat about what it takes for African unity, for Black unity to take place. We need to work together on the various levels that we work. We need doctors and we need mechanics. You know, we need printers and we need seamsters. We need, you know, people at all the different levels to work together in order to have some real practical African unity and Black unity. And so the politics of knowledge were constructed to make us think of it, you know, in Eurocentric construction of history, you basically had this hierarchy. At the top, you have the leaders, you know, the elites, and at the bottom, you have the masses. Okay, so and the history becomes not the history of the masses; it becomes history of the elites. So that you have, you know, the kings of Europe, and you say World War I was started because of, you know, this chancellor being shot in Germany, and the politics of the elites made that possible, you know, and they say that, you know, give you another example, that colonialism or slavery was made possible because of the popes and the elites in the church saying, yes, you can go ahead and do this. You know, in reality, that's not what made that whole process happen. What made it happen was that the small profits being made that become big profits, and shipbuilders, you know, sail makers, staffers, woodworkers, people who make the boats, you know, people who start to do these small plantations, getting more and more profit out of them slowly, 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 until things are so doggone profitable, everybody wants a piece of it. You know, the politics of knowledge have us looking at the elites as the makers of history. And they did the same thing to us in Africa. They wanted us to think the only history of Africa was history of the empires. So we know about Mansa Musa. We all know about Mansa Musa, but we don't know a damn thing about Malik. We don't know about rice, but we know about Mansa Musa. You know, we don't know about horses. We don't know Africans rode horses. We don't know that. I challenge you. You know, find people who think that they've been reading African history, Black history all their life. See if they know that at all. You understand?
Here's where I wanted you to really, and that's good stuff. Where I wanted you to go at was, for example, if you talk about philosophy, you know, you're talking about Socrates, Plato. If you're talking about music or the classic, so-called classic music, you're talking about Beethoven and Bach. If you're, so in other words, you know, the very beginnings or construction of knowledge is such that when you talk about those types of things, you're invariably talking about a European icon. You're starting in Europe. You're starting in Greece.
Right, and it's designed that way. That's why it's called Eurocentric. Eurocentric takes Europe as the center and the fount of these various areas of knowledge, and whether they came from them or not, they still try to claim the knowledge of that. You know, look at Elvis Presley, man. Elvis Presley takes Otis Blackwell's music, Hound Dog, you know, Don't Be Cruel. I mean, this is like this clear, you know, and suddenly takes it and makes it his, makes lots of money, becomes an icon in the culture, and 99.9% of the people would never doubt that this is his stuff, this is his spirit coming out in the music. And it's not. It's a copy of Otis Blackwell, but it's done his way, but it's still imitating. And so you find this to be true of philosophy, of Greek philosophy. You look at the book Stolen Legacy. George Jim James, in his publication in the 50s, he was an Arkansas, I think it was A&M scholar. But when he wrote Stolen Legacy, he pointed out that the Greeks studied in Kemet. Listen, my point is, and hear this, this place, this river in the desert, was the bomb. People came there and they learned. Okay, this is where they came to learn. And it was an African place. And they didn't mind saying, because they recognized that this was what it was.
Let me ask you something, because, and this is purely my
So let's discuss some of that, right? Or just bring out any points you want to bring out. You like it, you don't like it, you know, what stood out, or they left out, what you didn't know, whatever.
No, I'm not sure the analogy he gave about Moses and Akhenaten. What was he saying about that?
Hold on, let me give him a plug real quick. So this is Chuck Penn in the Diapian style page. And Chuck Penn is you know, hosting, asking the questions and stuff like that. So go ahead, Jamie.
No, I was just saying, I didn't quite get the analogy that he said, that he mentioned about Moses and Akhenaten.
Yeah, from what I gleaned from it was he was saying the progression of, you know, the stories that that came up out of that. came up out of our history, and then in the Ptolemy period, they started to, you know, fabricate the shit, you know, with Moses and all that shit. So
Okay.
that's what I got out of it.
Yeah, that was
Does that
all
help
I
you?
had.
Does
Yeah,
that help
yeah,
you?
yeah. I mean, if that's yeah.
Anybody else want to say something about that?
I had never seen D before, but he was right on.
All right.
Yeah, he was spot on. He was studying along the same lines we do.
Yeah, I didn't see any, I honestly didn't see none of that out of the ordinary either.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, quoted
Yeah, I wish
Dr.
that.
Beard.
Go ahead, Eric.
No, I just saying he was speaking about Dr. Beard and quoting, you know, so yeah. Not the ordinary, brother. He was falling right in line.
Mhm.
Good. I wish I knew that minute mark, Jamie. I'll try to find it on my phone, and then get back to that part. Gerald? Gary?
I'm good. I'm enjoying it. It seems to follow a lot of what we've learned, and shows us different examples, and I like his analogies, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. Thank you.
All right. You back, Gerald? All right, Jamie. I'll try to find that minute mark, man, and get back to that so you can hear that whole portion again. I'll try
All
to
right.
find that while we play this. I'll try to find it on the phone.
All right.
All right, one.
My analysis, not anything I read or was told or anything like that, is that, and it's something I'm very interested in, and that is the whole concept of racial stratification, and more accurately, racial hierarchy. It's my view, based upon what I've learned from reading, you know, Herodotus and the interface between the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptians. And when these cultures came together, they did not see race or racial hierarchy as we see it today. Can you?
Sure. I mean, you know, it's true. What you're saying is absolutely true. The whole idea of racism came about in large part to justify the enslavement of Africans. Prior to that period, especially prior to the 1700s, I'm not even talking 1600s. Prior to, and you've read J. Rogers. J. Rogers is wonderful. Most people don't read him anymore, but if you read J. Rogers, Sex and Race, or any of those things, you realize that the whole ethnicity piece is completely different in the ancient world than it is in the modern world. But what you have is made by, see, there are a couple of things going on at the same time. Most of us don't realize as well that the university, the structure that intellectually justifies the various fields of knowledge that bases some of these, is relatively new. Most of us think the universities go way back into the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. No, they don't. Most university disciplines are about 100, 120 years old. There was no political science being taught in universities 200 years ago. There was no sociology. You know, the very first American serious history department publication was the Harvard Historical Review. You find the first history departments in German universities in the 1860s, Göttingen and places like that. And these particular institutions form the core teachings of what, you know, each discipline is going to teach within the university. So you have that when sociology is formed, they follow the Chicago school. You find history following German ideas. One very good resource to understand and break all this stuff down so that you understand the history of the university is W.E.B. Du Bois. W.E.B. Du Bois comes in at the beginning of a lot of these disciplines. There was no sociology, for example, and he's considered a pioneer sociologist. So you find that these scholarly, so-called scholarly groups, the anthropologists and the rest, develop at the same time that racism is at its height. So they justify, you know, and they try to justify this concept of race and the hierarchy of race and Darwin's, post-Darwin's, theory of selective breeding, those kinds of things. And they all try to put all of that in the context of how the world is. What is knowledge? And so if you become an anthropologist, and especially in the early times, you studied everybody except Europeans. If you become a historian, you study the Greeks. And the arguments, in fact, Bernal's Black Athena is a wonderful critique, Martin Bernal, is a wonderful critique of how the idea of classical Greece and classical studies becomes a part of the university life and the university system, the university construction of knowledge. It wasn't like that prior to the university construction, and that's what he talks about. So that you find that the intellectual justification or the so-called, scientific justifications for racism accompany the height of race, or for race rather, accompany the height of racism. So you see that this whole idea of Eurocentrism, the whole idea of race, is really part and parcel with the oppression of African peoples, rather than the reference to the history. The Greeks, didn't see black people like the modern whites see black people. The Romans didn't either. Neither did the ancient Asians. And this whole idea of race and racial superiority comes at a much later period in history.
What period does it show up?
Again, all of these things are gradual. They're not something that you say, okay, in 1246 it showed up. No, it doesn't work like that. It showed up over the period from, say, the late 1600s to the early 1800s is where it really shows up. Prior to that, and you'll see this in J. Rogers' Sex and Race, Africans were prominent in many parts of Europe. You had large numbers of Africans there. The Japanese say you can't be a samurai unless you have some black blood. There's a lot of these different regions of the world where African ancestry and Africanness is not a negative thing. The so-called Arabs, were very African, up until not that long ago, up until the point in which the Ottoman Empire brings more immigrants of a lighter complexion and different physical type into the areas of Egypt, Kemet, and North Africa. So you find that the whole idea of race and racism is very different in the early periods of history. It's not the same at all.
Speaking of which, that's a natural parallel or transition into the ancient Israelites, for example. One of the things that I find common amongst Americans in particular is that when we think of Jewry, American Jews, we think of European Jews.
Right.
But there are all kinds of Jews, people who practice Judaism.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the ancient roots of Judaism?
Sure. Sure. Two things have to come out. First of all, where do white Jews come from? Where do European Jews come from? The Jewish people, as we know, were through a series of invasions that the Bible documents, actually, the Babylonian invasion, the Persian invasion, the Roman, invasion, just like Kemet. You understand? This is a place that's right next door to Kemet. These people that are invading aren't really interested in Israel. They're interested in Kemet. Okay, and they're trying to get to Kemet. Israel just happens to be right next door, a little place next door to Kemet. So when you find the various dispersions taking place, they're really related to Kemet, but they do affect the ancient Jews as well. So when these people are scattered in different parts of the world, not a lot of people, they form isolated communities. Many of them maintain religious traditions. But in one place in the world, the Khazar Empire, from about 700 AD to 1013 AD, that is about 1,300 years ago to 1,000 years ago, one of the Central European monarchs embraces Judaism, and he invites some of these spread out Jews. This is the same time that Islam is growing. It's very interesting. We know about the spread of Islam, but we really don't know about the Khazar Empire. So he invites the Jewish refugees from various parts of this area, from the Fertile Crescent, from the Mesopotamia area, from what was Babylon, from the parts of Spain and from parts of Europe where they were, and they converge in this particular region, which is Central Europe, which is now Poland, Czechoslovakia, those regions of the world. And they form the largest Jewish state in history, called the Khazar Empire. And the Khazar Empire is where European Jews came from. The Jewish people integrated physically. They intermarried with the people that they lived with. There's an interesting book that I once found called Jews in Old China. And in this book, they depict the Jewish people in China, and they're Chinese looking. They're Chinese, physical Chinese, maybe with slight, variations, but essentially Chinese looking. And this showed me, and, other people have talked about it, that the Jewish people as traders intermarried and intermixed with almost all the people that they lived with. So when the Khazar invited the Jewish immigrants from various parts, they intermarried deeply with the Europeans and became the seed, the genetic seed, if you will, of the European Jews. The language that they spoke in the Khazar Empire was Yiddish. Okay. And this is the same Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, that the Nazi Holocaust, and that's another conversation, came from. Okay, so that's the first question. Okay, where do the European Jews come from? And then from there, they migrate to the United States and et cetera, and Israel was formed in the 49, that kind of stuff. So that's where they come from. So the image that we have of them comes from the mediated image of Jewish history and of biblical history, which is not, the mediated image was first of all appropriated by Europeans who wanted to say that all of this area that they get their culture from, remember the zones of confluence, okay, that they get their culture from, that these areas were theirs, that they were Europeans. And so suddenly, as they control the media more, new media becomes involved. There was no movies in 1900. There was no cars, few cars, no popular cars. There were no radios, no televisions, none of that stuff. So when those things come into being as transmitters of popular culture, they seize upon this with a racist ideology to project images of their history that is different than the real history. And they project the Bible, for example, as a white European project. And in reality, their own records. I mean, when you look at the icons that are considered holy in Russia, and all of the Orthodox churches, the Greek Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox, the Syrian Orthodox, all these Orthodox churches have these long-standing traditions. And in these traditions, they depict peoples in the Bible as black. You find among some of the greatest artifacts of the ancient world depictions of black Marys and Jesus. And you find, for example, at the foot of Mount Sinai, there was this monastery built by Catherine, who was the mother of Constantine, the Roman emperor, who embraced the first Roman emperor who embraced Christianity, and who became the conquering Roman that brought Romanized Christianity to the Mediterranean world. And Constantine's mother built these particular monuments all over the place that were considered as the places of sacred places. And there's this one, I'll show you a picture of it, where you have at the foot of Mount Sinai a monastery that is built by her. And in this monastery, there's this huge tapestry. And on one side, you have Catherine, the mother of Constantine, and as a European, and then you have Mary and Jesus in the middle as black people. You find literally thousands of sites where the Black Madonnas was. Ian Bay has a good sort of survey that's called The Cult of the Black Virgin. And in it, he points out all these Black Madonna sites all over Europe and North Africa, 300 in France alone, You know, the whole idea that the early Christians depicted Adam and Eve and Jesus, the Good Shepherd, as black people comes from their understanding of this tradition of Africans being central in the Bible story, of black people being central in the Bible story. Now, the question is, how is that so? Let's take a look at the Bible. The Bible itself gives us an ethnic code, if you will, in its Genesis table of nations. That's Genesis 10:20. And in it, it says that Noah, their story is, the Bible is the story of a group of people. Okay, and first of all, you know, a clan, if you will, several tribes, you know, an ethnic group. And every ethnic group that I'm aware of has its deeper traditions and deeper narratives, has a story of creation in which they're the created people. The Yoruba, you know, have a story of their created people. The Shona, the Kemites, all have this narrative of creation. And the Hebrew people have this narrative of creation where you have Adam being created as the first person. If you take their chronology and, you know, let's look at the current Jewish year, you'll see that it's only about 8,000-9,000 years old. And we know people were there before that. But anyway, their story suggests that there was a great flood, and this flood destroyed the world, probably their world. You know, and their world was very most likely at the origins of their culture between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. In fact, Abraham was born in Ur in the Chaldees, which I believe today, what country would that be in?
Iraq.
Is it Iraq or is it not Turkey? Where the war started because the Kuwait, not Kuwait. Is it Kuwait? Maybe I think it might be Kuwait. I forget the small country, really small country that is it? It might have been Kuwait. Okay, but right there at the tip of where the Tigris and Euphrates join. Okay, and so there's this flood, and the flood destroys everybody in the world except for whom? Noah. Noah has 3 sons, but these 3 sons have unusual characteristics because they're also color names. You have Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Ham means dark, Shem means reddish, and Japheth means white colored or light colored. So you have this sort of color coding within this group. And I believe, and many other scholars believe, that this is a way that they saw how the colors, the ethnicity of the world evolved. And they said, see, these people are descendants of Ham because they were black people. These people are descendants of Shem because they were reddish, not black, and not white people as well, different kinds of colors. And the Shemites include the Israelites. Abraham is a Shemite. Now they're called Semites. So we're talking about the ancient Jews, ancient Arabs as well. They're calling the people who migrated into these areas from that area. Notice we're talking about migration again. Okay, we talked about in those areas, Shemites and Israelites and Ishmaelites both becoming Semites, representing the Semitic branch. But who are the Hamites? Ham was the dark one. Ham's sons had 4 sons: Cush, Canaan, Phut, and Mitzrayim. Cush means black. Okay, so Cush has a son whose name is Nimrod. Nimrod founds the cities of Babylon. You understand? Mitzrayim means children of the sun. Ra is the sun. Ra is the sun in Kemet. Ray is what we call the force that emanates from the sun. You see, same word. Very same word. Hasn't changed in all these thousands of years. So they call one of the sons of Ham Mitzrayim, which means children of the sun. Guess who the children of the sun are in the Bible? The Egyptians. Every Egyptian is called a Mitzrayim. In the Arabic tongue, the sister-brother language of the Hebrew tongue, the Semitic tongue, Egypt, which is an Arabic-speaking country now, is still called Al-Mitzrayim.
And what does Egypt? Egypt is
Aegyptos was a Greek term coming from the Coptos, from the same religious background, but it's not the same as what I'm talking about now.
What does? What
Wait,
does-
wait, let me finish this. Okay, because you got Ham's sons, Cush, meaning black, founding Babylon, and you see Cush down in past Nubia. Then you got Canaan, Put, and Mitzrayim. Okay, Mitzrayim, children of the sun, all the Kemites, all the ancient Egyptians are called children of the sun in the Bible. Okay, then you have the Canaanites. Where does the Bible take place? The Bible is a story about how the followers of Moses, the children of Israel, and the ones they integrated with, just like they did integrated in Europe to make European Jews, they integrated in Africa, in Kemet, you know, up to the time of Moses, who thought he was a royal member of the 18th dynasty. Hello, the dynasty of Tutankhamun, the dynasty of Akhenaten, the dynasty of Hatshepsut, the dynasty of Thutmose, the first, second, and third. This is who Moses thought he was. He thought he was black. Let me just say it real plain. God says to him, what's that in the burning bush? What's that in your hand, Moses? He said, well, it's a stick. He said, throw it down. Throws it down, and what happens? Chuck, you know this story. Come on, don't.
This is for the audience now.
Turn to a snake.
It becomes a snake. And this is one of the signs of God to show to the Egyptian people, or the Mitzrayimites, because they know a lot of stuff. So then God says, Moses says, that's a good sign, but I need a little bit more. So God says, put your hand inside your coat and it'll come out white. And then put it back and it'll restore its natural color. You understand? Moses thought he was a royal member of a clearly black African Kemetic dynasty. This is who he thought he was until he was a grown man. He could not have looked anything other than African in order for that reality to be a part of who he was. So Moses comes out of Kemet. So in other words, you've got, and he takes his people to the Sinai Peninsula, to a little strip next to Egypt, next to Kemet, the Sinai Peninsula. And these people that they have to deal with and integrate with and fight with for the most of the story of the Bible are the Canaanites. Wait a minute, the sons of Ham. Remember we talked about the Hamitic curse? The racists tried to say, yeah, the Hamitic curse made you black. Ham is. You understand? Now what has happened recently over the last 40, 50 years is that when they realized that, you know, these Hamites were in fact Kemites. And so they say, well, Hamites aren't black anymore. They're just black-skinned white people. So you see a lot of confusion in the term Hamite. But Hamites originally meant children of Ham, the dark races, So the Hamites are the Canaanites. The Canaanites are every other
Black skinned white people.
Right.
Falls in love
Wow.
with a Canaanite woman. Her parents trick him. He gets pissed off. He starts jacking up people with the jawbone of an ass. You understand? The integration of Canaanites. The Philistines were Canaanites. You know, Palestine is the Romanized word for Philistine. Okay, and it's called Palestine up until recent times. From ancient times to recent times, it was called Palestine. That's the name Philistine. Goliath was a Philistine. Philistines are Canaanites. The whole
You said it was called Philistine all that time, or
Palestine. Palestine is a Romanized word because from the Roman occupation until recently, it was called Palestine, till 1949. The people are still called Palestinians. See, the names don't change. And that's one of the ways that you understand that history is still identifying these people. The names don't change. So you got the names here, Noah's people. Noah's Ham's sons. All these names continue on. The Cushites remain Cushites. The Mitzrayimites, Egypt is still called El Mizra. You see? So you see, all the names don't change. And so the Canaanites, you find the Philistines, who the Romans called Palestine. So you find David and Goliath, right? Goliath is like Shaq, man.
That's very good.
He's like Shaq. And David is like Spud Webb. So Spud Webb and Shaq are in a slam dunk contest. and spun web webs. What makes you say that the ancient Hebrews, ancient Jews, were people of color? Who are they? Look at the story of the Bible. Remember, we talk about the integration of a people, intermarriage of a people. At the end of the book of Genesis, you find Joseph leading his people, bringing his family into he's in power now, has an official position. Brings his whole family from the Sinai Peninsula into Egypt. Now, you know his father is Jacob, who had wrestled with an angel and changed his name to Israel. And the Bible from that point becomes the story of the children of Israel. That's the family lineage that we're looking at. Okay, so he brings that whole family lineage, which at that time was 70 people, into Egypt, into Kemet, and they disappear until Jewish sources say 215, 230 years later. Some historical sources, some other sources say a few hundred years later, a couple of hundred years. They come out, and some sources say 600,000 strong. Who did they integrate with to become 600,000 people? The children of the Son of the Bible, the Mizraimites of the Bible? If they did, then these people, when they came out, were Africanized. And they, in turn, maybe not as Africanized, not as, as some of the other settlers of the region, but, I mean, look, we're picking at straws. These people were certainly Africanized. They come out with African views of religion. They come out with African traditions. What do they do when they're in the desert? They sit up there and they take off the earrings. The men take off the earrings, according to the Bible. And the women and the jewelry and the rest, they put it together and they make Hathor. The golden calf. They call it the golden. What's the golden calf? That's Hathor. You understand? That's the Kemetic nature. You see, and they do it in the Kemetic calendar. So anyway, they migrate into the Sinai and they then start to integrate and conflict with other African people, other dark-skinned people.
5 more minutes and we'll
other
pause.
Sons of Ham, other descendants of Ham. So the Bible,
All right.
story of one group of people of color integrating with other groups of people of color. And what do you have to prove this? Artifacts. When you look at artifacts of Canaanites, when you look at artifacts of some of the leaders in particular of Babylon, when you look at the Phoenician artifacts, which is another Canaanite group, when you look at the Kemetic artifacts, which are the whole great legacy of Nile Valley civilization, what do you see? You see African peoples, especially during these periods in history before the larger immigrations are taking place in conjunction with some of the invasions. A really wonderful text for anybody who wants to get into the study of ancient Kemet, to understand its contributions to math, to science, to astronomy, to engineering, to architecture, to religion. I mean, religion's a whole different, ball game. When you talk about what are the roots of the religion? I mean, where did Moses grow up? Where did Jesus grow up? They grew up in Kemet in ancient Egypt. Jesus leaves ancient Israel. He leaves Bethlehem, as an infant, and doesn't show up until he's a grown man. And all this, he shows up once actually in the temple, but after that disappears again. And all this time that he shows up, where is he? He's in Egypt. He's in ancient Egypt, in Kemet. And we could talk about the Osirian resurrection, the so-called Trinity, the idea of Gnosticism. All of these things are very much a part of the legacy of this part of Africa. I'll give you an example of immigration. In North Africa, you had the French from the 1840s, 1830s, 1840s onwards, begin to immigrate in large scale into Algeria in North Africa. And Algeria becomes one of the lightest complexioned African countries, not because of its original peoples, but because of immigration that takes place and how immigration has an impact. The Native Americans are not shown as original Americans. And these Americans we have now, black or white, are not the original peoples. Immigration is what has made this. Immigration does play a part in the ancient world, but not the same kind of part it does in the modern world. So you have immigration of these ancient African peoples and peoples who have this combination cultures like the Israelis into other parts of people where people are more African. And so therefore you see the African presence throughout. Why is it that the early Christians painted images of the Black Madonna? Why is it that the early Christians painted pictures of Jesus, the Good Shepherd, as a Black person? Why is it that you find icons of the apostles, icons of the early Christian activities as Africanized people? Because they were. Because they were. If the Black one in Ian Begg in the Cult of the Black Virgin, you know, talks about why the Madonnas are Black, and he says when you ask the people who are worshiping the Black Madonnas, why are these Madonnas Black? You know, the scholars say, well, you know, there was paint and smoke and, you know, years and centuries of incense burning, you know, on these, and it makes them black. You know, and the funny part about it is the skin is black, but the eyes are not, the fingertips are not, you understand, the teeth are not. But anyway, when he did his research, and he said, why are these black? And you know what the people would tell him? They would tell him, because they are.
Well, you know, that sounds similar to Herodotus's first-hand account of the Egyptians and saying that the Colchians must be black as like them. They have the black skin and woolly hair.
Yeah.
That they were referring to the land, the earth.
Oh, yeah. Some people argue that the black land, what Kemet, the Meta Nature says the black land is calling land. But in that, there's in the designate, there's a person there. You know, so they're actually designate in Kemet, the Meta Nature, the hieroglyphics, is really rather, you know, plain about if it's talking about a plant, it'll show you the picture of the plant. If it's talking about a part of the body, show you a picture of the part of the body. If it's showing you a picture of a human being, then it'll show you a human being within that particular hieroglyphic.
Yeah, talk about the hieroglyphics.
So let me click back on and then revert back to the minute mark Jamie was asking about, and then we can converse about the second section of the 30 minutes, and then we got one more 30-minute session.
I'm not in.
Can you hear that?
Yes.
Okay. So let me go back. You there, Jamie?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I
So
ain't went nowhere.
this is just 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
The legacy, the racist legacy of early Egyptology that Sheikh Anta Diop critiques in the African origins of modern, the African origins of civilization, myth or reality. And so when you go to these places and you look at the Greeks get their gods. I mean, W.E.B. Du Bois, anybody who writes, you know, about these areas, and African-centered writers in particular, point out that the Greeks got the names and the characteristics, the qualities of their god from the Kemites. How do you do that? How do you get the names of your gods from another people? These people had it better. And they said, wow, what is this called? They're saying this to the Egyptians. Look at Atlantis. What is Atlantis? Atlantis comes out of Kemet. Atlantis was, and this again, Sheikh Anta Diop does a wonderful job in civilization or barbarism. He has a small chapter about the Atlantis myth. The Kemites, the ancient Egyptians, told the Greeks, they said, your ancestors come from Atlantis, you know, which was destroyed, and then they moved from Atlantis to Greece. This is what the Egyptians told the Greeks. And so what is Atlantis? There's this island in the Mediterranean called Santorini that exploded in about 1450 BC. And that was the Atlantis. That exploded, and it created a lot of things in the middle of the 14th and the middle of the 18th dynasty. It creates a sense of change of religion. It leads to Akhenaten in some ways. In Kemet, Akhenaten leads to Moses. Moses leads to the Hebrew thing, which leads to the Bible. You know, all of this, and Tutankhamun, all these guys were in the same place. And so we're looking at this creation of all these historical.
Got it, Jamie?
Yeah, I got it, man.
That was
Yeah.
the part you was talking about, right?
Right, and then that Atlantis part, man. I don't know about that, man.
Yeah. When I listened to this, I was thinking about somebody gonna say something about that.
Yeah, that Atlantis part, man. I don't know about that one. That's yeah. I don't.
Anybody got something to say about that? About the Atlantis part?
Yeah, I'm just saying, man. I just don't know about that one, man. I don't think I agree with that.
Okay, so how about the second portion of this presentation? Anybody got something to say about that? Let me get off this real quick. Okay. Anybody got something to say about that part?
Yeah, I'm gonna be the first one to say that, man. I don't think I agree with that one,
Right.
that Atlantis one.
Right.
Because when you get to admitting to Atlantis, you know, they you know, that's where uh Madame Blavatsky and you know, Theosophy, the Luciferian and Theosophies, uh they I might not be, I'm not saying that right, man. Yeah, but it's dealing with Theosophy, and I that they claim that the superior race comes from Atlantis and all this type of shit, and you know what I'm talking about. So that and Atlantis and Mu and all that kind of stuff, man. So yeah, that, you know, and I don't see Atlantis nowhere in the historical record, King. So I don't know, man. I don't know about that.
What's
He might
what's
not.
the
He might know something more than I do. I mean, obviously he do, but I'm just saying that I ain't ran into.
what's the dude's name? Be on Signet and he has the braid. Forgot his name.
They has what?
He has the braid.
The braid.
Yeah.
Oh, Shaka Amos.
Yeah, and Shaka almost, I mean, he stands on if you don't know about Atlantis, you really, is that what he's talking about? I don't think he's talking about Alexandria. He's talking about Alexandria, so that might not fit. He's saying if you don't know about Alexandria, you're missing a whole bunch
Yeah, no,
stuff that's
that's
necessary. So this is different. Atlantis is different.
yeah, Alexandria. That's in Egypt. That's Kemet.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
exactly.
but I'm saying these yeah, that one though. I like I said, because like I said, then you get to dealing with uh Theosophy and Luciferian type shit, and that's where you know, Madame Blavatsky and uh uh I tell I it's a couple of more of them.
Right.
I'll tell you, but nah, man, I don't know about that, because like I said, they'll tell you their teachings is Atlantia, or whatever they call it, Atlantis was before Kemet, was before Nubia, was before, you know what I'm saying? So they said they predate Kemet, and they are, you know, the superior white race and type shit. same place that Hitler get his teachings from, and yeah, those Hindu, they was messing with that Hinduism too. So yeah, I don't know, man. Hey, I don't know about that one, kid.
Right. That's why we
Yeah,
do this. That's why we do this. Right?
yeah, I don't know about that one, man.
Gerald, do you want to say anything about that?
Ooh,
Or anything about any of it?
I don't know.
I don't.
Gerald trying not to talk too much.
Yeah,
Anyways,
They got live onions in them.
okay. All right,
yeah,
we
but
just got
hey, what, Eric gone. Okay,
Carrie, you want to share anything about that?
No, I don't know enough about it to share,
Okay.
but yeah, but it's something I want to research, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah, Eric dropped off.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, like I said, man. I ain't gonna go with that one.
Right. So we got about 33 more minutes and then we'll be done. You guys cool with that?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carrie?
Yes.
Okay.
Poaching them in the state.
So they're actually designated in Kemet, the Meta Nature, the hieroglyphics, is really rather, plain about if it's talking about a plant, it'll show you the picture of the plant. If it's talking about a part of the body, show you a picture of the part of the body. If it's showing you a picture of a human being, then it'll show you a human being within that particular hieroglyphic.
Yeah, talk about the hieroglyphics.
I'm not an expert in hieroglyphics, so I'm not going to talk about too much.
Not in terms of deciphering or interpreting,
Mhm.
but are not a lot of the depictions on the Egyptian tombs and walls, and they not depict themselves as people of color?
Well, you wouldn't find this as much within the writing because the writing becomes over a very long period of time very streamlined and subtle. You do find it, for example, there's a UPenn museum here of archaeology and anthropology. I was just taking my class there last week, and you find from the Old Kingdom, some of the earliest images, the same glyphs that you see later, but they're really big, and the same glyph will be like really small down the road and very simplified. But in the bigger glyphs, you see people represented. These are people who are always painted brown and dark brown people as well. But you do find in the other artifacts, in the sculpture
You mother made perfect too, man.
representation,
Who made them? You?
Is this isn't a real Upshapti. This is a representative of one, but Upshapti is a funerary figure that you'll see throughout Kemet literally by the tens
You got a
of
little tiny
thousands.
one you got over there?
I've never
I
seen
like
a
one like
Hebrew
that.
Upshapti that doesn't have an
That doesn't
African
make
face.
it on.
These were supposed to carry you and represent your family in the afterlife and things. But Upshaptis,
And I'm gonna get a shot of that later on.
okay. That's not an artifact. That's just a representative. But I mean, why would they make representatives of artifacts that had black faces if the actual artifacts didn't have them? You notice in some of the movies where they appropriate Kemet. They try to make it white people as opposed to black people. On the walls, the depictions on the walls, they show black people. You see what I'm saying? I mean, the artifacts, the monuments, the big paintings, the great sculptures do show this. There's a very strong archival representation of African peoples, African genetic leadership, throughout this particular place in Africa.
Talk a little bit about the recent computer generated the King Tut exhibit. Talk a little bit about what's your take on that, particularly
It's consistent.
the visualization.
It's consistent with Egyptology. Sheikh Anta Diop says. Can I quote him for just a second?
Yes, you can.
Okay. I have a feeling. Okay. Let me just read for just a quick second a line from Sheikh Anta Diop's the African origin of civilization, myth, or reality. It says the birth of Egyptology was thus marked by the need to destroy the memory of a Negro Egypt at any cost and in all minds. Henceforth, the common denominator of all these theses of the Egyptologists can be characterized as a desperate attempt to refute that opinion. So, in other words, he's saying that the birth of Egyptology was accompanied by a racist ideology that had to destroy the idea of a Negro Egypt. It says, the advent on page 51, the advent of Egyptology through the interpretation of scientific erudition is thus marked by the crude, conscious falsifications that have been marked. Now, when we take that idea and we apply the same principle to modern constructions of Egyptian identity, of ancient Egyptian identity, you see this, the whole idea of Tutankhamun. These people in Kemet were good, man. They were great artists. They were absolutely great. They knew how to depict people realistically, especially by the time you get to the 18th dynasty. You take a look at Queen Ta'i, and I'll show you, you've seen pictures of her before. You take a look at their family and other representations. Tutankhamun's tomb had representation, had images of him, three-dimensional sculptures that show the same long head, but on a black person. You see, so it's not the artifact that they're representing. It's the idea that they're going to take science and try to stretch it, to change black to white. Like Hamites. Hamites are suddenly black-skinned white people. This is crazy. Some of the arguments that were used in Egyptology to refute the Africanness or the so-called Negro-ness of Egypt, are so silly, it's ridiculous. You can go to textbooks and you can find references and images where they'll show you this is a white person of South Africa or of Africa. And they're not white at all. And you say to yourself, how do they get away with this kind of stuff? And it's because the politics of knowledge. We know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know because of the politics of knowledge. Okay, we don't know Egyptians were black because Elizabeth Taylor plays Cleopatra. And Cleopatra wasn't, jet black. She had mixed parentage. She had Greek and African parents, but still she wasn't black. I mean, she wasn't European. You understand what I'm saying? Because the Egyptians are depicted as black. The ancient world, the Bible are depicted. I mean, I didn't want to do it, but I did anyway. I looked at Mel Gibson's, what is the Passion of the Christ? And man, they made such a conscious attempt to not have black people in that. It was shameful.
I called it, I think it was 6.5 or 3.5. When I watched the movie, I tried to count how many black people. I think it was 6.5.
Even Simon the Cyrenian, right? The guy who carried the cross for Jesus. Everybody knows, all the scholars references this was a black man. They got the lightest skinned black man they could find to play him. They couldn't deny he was black, but they could deny he was black. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, take a look. Have you ever seen the movie Young Guns?
No.
You sure of Jesse James' story and the James boys, how they were caught? The troops that caught them, the cavalry that caught them, were black. So in the movie, they actually have black soldiers there, but they're so light in complexion you can't tell. You have to look closely and say, wait a minute, was that a brother? And it was. This is what they do. This is what happens once the academic, justified that these were Europeans, then the media, these new media, you understand? These are new media. They didn't exist before. These new media then take license, to depict the whole thing like they want to depict it. And suddenly, there are no more images of black people in the Bible.
I have to share with you that my brother's a pastor, and he asked me about it. He was excited about it, and I could tell it was a family reunion type setting. It wasn't married, it was someone. And he asked me about it. We're out on the porch and everything, and their all eyes were on me. And when I thought about it, I could tell he was a little taken aback that I wasn't all that thrilled with it because historical or academic and historical integrity are important to it. You don't want to revise history. I'm so happy that what I get from you is the facts as you know them or as historical documentation would uphold, and not a glorified, phony, revised history that would make us feel good. History is history, good, bad, and in between.
Yeah.
And it was a real turnoff to me that I didn't see any African people. Because
Isn't that amazing? I mean, European Jews inherit European racism. So when we talk about the images that come out in modern times and modern racist kinds of images, we see that it's all, I mean, I'm not trying to say it's a conspiracy, in part because when you think about it, if you grow up with a certain belief, that you embrace that as your belief. If it's an inaccurate belief, that's another story. But that's still your belief until you find accurate information that challenges and helps you to change that particular inaccurate belief. So we have grown up with inaccurate images of ourselves, inaccurate images of Africa, inaccurate presentations and understandings of African history, inaccurate representations of Kemet and of the Bible. So in a way, I mean, you can't fault the victim, you know, but you have to inform the victim. You have to change that person's perspective, and to do it, we don't need to do anything except use real history.
And the victim you're alluding to is really the majority society, the people.
Yeah, not just black people.
Right. Well, let me pose this to you. I was reading Joe Fagan, the sociologist Joe Fagan, one of his books, right? White Racist, I think it was. And he had some quotes in there from H.R. Haldeman, who's one of President Nixon's, in fact, his right-hand man, his staff. And he had a diary where he captured some things from President Nixon. And Nixon commented in he had his diary that, you know, Africa they're hopeless, and that African Americans, that the African people have never had a high society or high civilization, that we've never really had a sustained civilization.
I mean,
it blew my mind, Daud, because this man was president of the United States. And
you know, he went to Ghana. He was at Independence. Nixon, as vice president, was the representative who came to Ghana in 1957, March 5th, I believe, 1957, might have been March 7th, you know, and at that time, he met, and he wouldn't meet with these same people here. He met Martin Luther King in Ghana. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? The same Richard Nixon. But you're right. These people, they believe this, and they project it, but it's not true. It's just that simple. It's just simply untrue. I mean, look, okay, this is not going to be a stretch, but it's going to be a deep thought. Okay, you ready? Let me know when you're ready, brother.
I'm ready.
Okay, this mindset that we're talking about, a Eurocentric mindset, actually convinced their own people that Africans were not human beings, even though they were having babies, having families with this human being, with us. You understand? What kind of mindset can do that? Can have sex and babies and children and love these children, and in the same time turn around and say this isn't human. I mean, this is what people like Thomas Jefferson were doing. George Washington, and I don't normally say this, so I don't know, you know, but I'll say it for you now. George Washington, the father of this country, only had black children. I know this for a fact because my own children are direct descendants of George Washington. In Manassas, Virginia, the Ricks family inherited a tract of land as part of their inheritance as children of George Washington in Manassas. And my children's grandparents just sold their property. They both passed recently. And they just sold, and their property was just sold in Manassas to make way for some of the buildings in Manassas. So, I mean, these people You know, how can you, what is racism? Racism makes no sense. It's not logical. It just simply is not logical. You cannot have children and families with people and then say they're not human in the same way.
Okay, now I want to shift gears on you now. You don't have to go there if you don't want to,
Okay.
but I want to talk about reparations.
Okay, good.
Um,
Reparations is complicated. What do you think about it? Let me get your take on
okay,
it first.
well, I'll just stop. Yep. Um, I'd like to ask you about reparations. Do you believe that people of African descent are due reparations, and why?
Why? Well, sure, absolutely. I believe that our people have been violated, that we've been viciously oppressed.
I'll stop you right there because remember they may not hear my question.
Okay. Oh, do I believe in reparations? And if so, why? How? Yes, I do. I believe, I know for a fact that our people have been viciously and violently oppressed. You know, I mean, a number of the reasons for the problems that we have, especially problems relating to self-esteem and economic position, have to do with factors such as intergenerational wealth transfer, which Black people don't have as a matter of law. When you see, for example, in World War II, the veterans come back from World War II, and white veterans are given the opportunity to buy houses and get houses with a different kind of loan program than was available to Black people. When you look at the inheritance of land in this country, although there are areas that Black people have owned and still own large areas of land, most of the land in this country, which is available through intergenerational wealth transfer, is not available to Black people. In fact, is part of the wealth inheritance that European Americans have and that Africans don't have. The main reason I think that reparations is vital is because of the violence, of the intellectual and physical violence that our people had suffered. We actually went through generations of not getting paid for back-breaking labor. And, you know, when you look at the South, when you look at the rice, we talked about Carolina rice. So we actually we talked about African rice and how African rice, which becomes a form of not the Asian sativa, but another type of African rice. And I'm trying to remember the name of it. I'll come back to that. When we look at that, rice becomes a few 100,000 pounds to 60 million pounds of rice every year coming out in the 1780s, 1790s, all as a product of enslaved African labor. And the way that the rice was milled in South Carolina was the African way, with the mortar and pestle. You know how you take it and you beat it and separate it from there? All of that was pure African. But the death rates, because of the numbers of many hours of mortaring and pestling, 10 hours, 8 hours a day. There's a good book that just came out recently called Black Rice that deals with this particular topic, the African rice there. The enforced labor killed people. And there was really high mortality rates for a product that was an African product that made America rich. When you look at cotton and cotton industries, when you look at tobacco, the tobacco industries, when you look at sugar, in the Caribbean and stuff, these are what made this part of the world, these European settler colonies, rich. And the people who did the work for them were never paid. In fact, they were punished, as a compensation for this. That is wrong. That's a historical inequity that absolutely has to be redressed. Other peoples in the world have been recompensed for historical oppression. The Jews in Germany got Israel, for example. I mean, let's just be straight about that. You see that the Japanese were interred in World War II. Compensation was that. The Polish got, compensation, reparations. So reparations is a legal thing. And this country, in addition to that, created a legal system where it was a great contradiction. On the one hand, it was the land of the free, equal protection under law, but on the other hand, it racially oppressed African people. And so this particular specific historic legal oppression should be and must be compensated. Now the question is, how do you compensate it? And the answer is a very complex answer. There are many, many levels in which this compensation and which this oppression and which reparations can take place. Some people suggest a simple cash payment for Afro descendants of people who were enslaved. I don't think that that's really an effective way to take such a massive project under construction. Some people take an idea of the global implications of the impact of enslavement, not just on African Americans, but on Africans in all the diaspora, in the Caribbean, in South America, Africans in Africa as well, where where you see this negative trade and impacting the economies and colonial similar racist policies. Apartheid in South Africa, for example, being all similar, part of the same global system of racial oppression of Black peoples. And those are very different. They're miles apart in terms of what could be done. But I think that reparations isn't going to be on the table until consciousness is in the minds of the young people and the various peoples in our culture and in our civilization. We don't have the consciousness now to empower ourselves to seek reparations as a massive group en masse. We don't have that consciousness yet. And to me, that's the first step. So I'll spend my time, working on developing tools and studies and information that helps raise historical consciousness. And once historical consciousness is raised or can be raised, then the idea and the various solutions to how reparations takes its form can really become addressed in very serious ways. Because that's something that I like to make real plain.
I know. But remember now, I'm doing a piece on the burning cost.
Okay.
So even though you make some distinctions over that not being everything that has been characterized as being that they got together in 1882, 84 and carved it up, and that was it. That
Oh,
what happened. But talking about what
Yeah, you
transpired
respond to that, Ted?
during the burning cost. You understand what I'm saying? You bring a whole lot more depth to it, in terms of
Yeah. You might want to take a look at this book. Take it with you.
okay.
This is a document from the
Hey, go get come off mute. You're on mute. Unmute it. Yeah,
So you couldn't hear some of it?
yeah. Some of it. Because you was we heard your
About
conversation
how long do you think?
for about not even a minute.
being all similar, part of the same global system of racial oppression of Black peoples. And those are very different. They're miles apart in terms of what could be done. But I think that, reparations isn't going to be on the table until consciousness is in the minds and the various peoples in our culture and in our civilization. We don't have the consciousness now to empower ourselves to seek reparations as a massive group en masse. We don't have that consciousness yet. And to me, that's the first step. So I'll spend my time, working on developing tools and studies and, information that helps raise historical consciousness. And once historical consciousness is raised or can be raised, then the idea and the various solutions to how reparations takes its form can really become addressed in very serious ways. Because that's something that I like to make real plain.
I know,
You know?
but remember now, I'm doing a piece on the Berlin Conference.
Okay.
So even though you make some distinctions over that not being everything that has been characterized as being that they got together in 1882, 84 and carved it up and that was it. That's where it happened. But talking about what transpired during the Berlin Conference, you understand what I'm saying? You bring a whole lot more depth to it, you know, in terms of
Here, you might want to take a look at this book. Take it with you.
okay,
This is a document from the Berlin Conference.
okay, scramble for apples. Okay, please say that. All right, let me frame you up here.
All right.
But what I want you to do is just talk about the historic event of and if you want to throw in stuff about that there had a lot of transpired before then and the fierceness of the fighting of the troops and all that.
That's
That's
why
all.
carved up Africa right there.
This is a monumental point. To me, the arrogance of the Berlin Conference is really what I want to talk about. Just the idea of somebody with one African there and that sort of thing. Go ahead, bro. Why don't you get started?
You want to
Amen.
talk about the Berlin Conference and
Talk
that?
about the Berlin Conference. I mean, when it took place, what happened, you know, what the results of it.
Let me contextualize it a little bit more. We often wonder what happened to the black world, or conversely, excuse me, what happened to the white world that they suddenly leaped so far ahead of other peoples in the world, right? We think about that. We say, well, what's the real reason? Most people haven't really studied it. They think that it has something to do with something in the mind or some, you know, advantage that they naturally possess. And in reality, much of it had to do with one thing, and that is new military technology. In particular, the change in military technology that took place from the late 1860s or mid 1860s to the 1880s, which was the change from the muzzle loading technology, breech loading technologies. You remember, if I use this pencil, the muzzle loading, if this was a rifle, you'd stick the bullet. First, you pack the powder and the explosive and the packing down in there, and then you stick the bullet, take a stick and ram it in, and then boom, you shoot it off. Then you have to do the same thing every now and then. That's the muzzle loading technology. And the breech loading technology is you take the end of it off, put the bullet in there, pre-packaged bullet, put it back, fire. So you'd had this particular change in technology took place primarily, like I said, from the 1860s to the 1880s. If you've ever seen the movie Dances with Wolves, with, you see in the beginning, the Confederate sharpshooters are trying to shoot Kevin Costner and his horse from about 80 to 100 yards away, and they missed. All of these sharpshooters missed with the muzzle loading technology. Bam! 3 shots in 2 minutes if you're a professional. By the end of the movie, he's giving them the new technology, which is the breech loading. He's giving the Lakota Sioux the new technology, and they're shooting the Paiutes. Not Paiutes. They're shooting the. My mind just drew a quick blank. You have to cut this out. They're shooting their enemies. Okay, he's given the Lakota Sioux the new weapons, and they're shooting their enemies. Boom, 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 without practice, without missing. This is really pretty representative of this new technology. Between 1860 and 1880, this breech loading technology changed the nature of warfare. And in it, it changed the territorial ambitions and the mentality of many of the people who controlled this type of production. You find in the 1860s that Germany fights Prussia with these new technologies, and suddenly Germany is now a power. So we see that by the time that you get to this area, the end of the slave trade has taken place. The wealth that had characterized the enslaved, the slave owners and the slave societies has pretty much internalized their internal expansion in the Americas, both North and South America and Europe. even though it has this new technology, doesn't have the same kind of income that it was having from those periods of time where they were deeply involved in the global slave trade. So what do? They begin to look at their military expansion in the areas they could not have expanded into prior to this new technology. We talked about Africans having horses. You know, people don't know about the Africans had guns too. We have this image Africans didn't have guns and the Europeans. That's a fabrication, you know, of the media. If we look at East Africa or if we look at West Africa, we see that the gun trade accompanied the slave trade and that many African states had thousands of guns. We also find that in the North-South trade, the trans-Saharan trade, that guns were an important part of the trade. Gunpowder was made by African people. Guns were manufactured within Africa by African people. Africans had guns by the thousands. This is a myth that we think Africans didn't have guns and Europeans, and it's just a way to dumbify us and make us think the simple thing is really what happened. Reality was much, much more complex. So that by the time that you get to the Berlin Conference, there had been several campaigns, major campaigns in Africa that tested the types of weaponry against African forces and against African fighting conditions. So that you find, it's interesting, some of the Americans that became central in the whole idea, the whole interest in Africa, Henry Stanley, British, and the rest become a part of this too. So you had in 1868, 66,000 British troops land in the coast of Ethiopia to try to rescue hostages in Ethiopia. They barely make it through there because the Ethiopian emperor, Tewodros, is very unpopular. The other Ethiopians lead them through, and they end up fighting in there. 1874, you find the invasion of Kumasi, and the Europeans try to bring a force into a West African powerhouse, and they ultimately make it, but they start out with 25,000 troops, and they end up with only with 1,500 troops being killed. And the Asante was so slick that they would wake up in the morning, the British would wake up, and the Asante would be inside of the camp. You understand what I'm saying? They just barely made this out. And what happened was they, in a document that they had for their troops in 1874, this is 20 years before the Berlin Conference, 10 years before the Berlin Conference, they say, our new breech loading weapons are far superior to their old flintlocks and their old muskets, which are only accurate up to 60, 70 yards at the most. So the new technology is starting to be a justification for expansion that didn't exist before because they couldn't beat the African cavalries before. They couldn't beat cavalries of 6, 7, 10, 50,000 cavalry because they didn't have the weaponry to do it until that time. So you find that during this period from the 1860s to the 1880s is where you have the territorial expansion of Europe. Gunboats on the Yangtze River in China, the penetration of some of the rivers in Africa, and the colonial penetration begins in the 1800s there when you have Leopold and gunboats on the Congo River. And you see that when these new weapons show up, African rulers see these new weapons, and rather than kowtow to them, Europeans say, let us be your allies. We have these new weapons. And so the whole phase after the Berlin Conference in 1884 was called the diplomatic phase, that for at least 7 to 10 years, the efforts were to try to make treaties with these African powers. And then once these treaties were made and they were entrenched, and they began recruiting more black troops. And that's a subject I don't know if we can talk about right now. We should spend a whole session, if you will, on black troops. But that whole process becomes solidified where you have now you're in and you have more troops and you have better weapons. Then you can start to try to actually seize territories that you at first had claimed only as spheres of influence. And this is what the conference to me was about.
We got about 2.5 minutes left on this tape.
2 tapes, huh?
And that's all right. I got another one. I can't read it, brother. I didn't expect it, but it's all right. We're going to do this again.
Okay.
But what I want you to talk about is what transpired during the conference and the principles that were there and how the continent was carved up. I was carved up, irrespective of natural.
No, I have to disagree.
Right.
The continent was not carved up in the Congress of Berlin. What happened was that the coastal areas, remember this is a almost 12 million square mile continent. They didn't know anything or hardly anything about what was going on the interior of the continent at the time.
Okay.
But what they did was that the coastal areas,
Okay.
in which there was European trading interest and some knowledge of what was in the interior, they protected each other's interest. They created spheres of influence, whereby the Portuguese said, we want to trade up this river and with these people. The British would say, we want to trade here, and they would negotiate, the trading rights in those regions. Similar to how the British and French and Spanish considered themselves to have areas of North America that they had no knowledge of in 1600s, and only in the 1800s that they got into these areas with Louisiana Purchase and stuff like that. Very similar. So it wasn't about the carving of. What resulted after a period of 20 years of warfare was the carving up into these various territories. But it's that 20 years of warfare that decided the carving up, not the Conference of Berlin.
Okay. That's a very important. Talk about the great Egyptian physician and architect, Imhotep.
Imhotep is a figure that I'd like to study a little more because he had such a profound impact on the idea of what is a scientist, what is a thinker. See, Imhotep was a quintessential scientist. Not only was he the architect of the first massive stone building in history, the Step Pyramid of Saqqara, but he also cataloged thousands of medicinal uses of plants. He didn't just sit and list plants. He said, this plant is used to help cure this. So you put this plant on your eye if your bee stings you on your eye. You take this plant, put it on an open wound, if this wound is taken. You take this plant if you're suffering from indigestion. You take this 3,000 medicinal uses of plants. And the most famous saying that he has until this day, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you will die.
There it is.
Hey, nah, I like the brother though. I do like it because he dead on. I do like that. Gerald, you back? I don't know, Gerald back. Hey, what? I do like the brother though, but it's just
That one
yeah,
part, huh?
yeah, just that one part, man. I ain't gonna be able to go with
Matt.
that. Hey, Gerald. So did you hear the part where he was talking about Atlantis?
I want to talk about the
No.
Hold on. Let me
Okay.
explicitly populate the modern country known as Egypt, and compare those people that live there now. It's common that when all of the history.
Okay.
So it sounds, and I don't want to quote the brother wrong, but it sounded like the brother said that
You want me to go back to it?
yeah, you know where, yeah, you know where it's at. Hey, just check this little part out right quick, Gerald. I mean, I can't go with it. I don't know.
So Jamie is talking about the Atlantis part. So I'll just play that. It's only 2 minutes.
Yeah, he talking about people, yeah, Atlantis and all this, he said Atlantis was a real place. I mean, that's what I think what he said.
Hey, let me call you back after I get offline. All right, bet. You good? All right, bet. Sorry about that, guy.
You good, man?
Gotta find them all. There we go. Next one.
on television and have no idea what he's talking about, Kemet or
Tutankhamun in the 18th dynasty. This and the artifacts that prove that all these things were there prior to the Greeks or anybody else coming on the historical scene with any comparable knowledge. And there are also evidences that prove that these people were Africans at the same time, including their own artifacts, how they depicted themselves. Look at Tutankhamun in the 18th dynasty. This is a brother. You could take gold paint, put it on a school kid in Philly, and he looked just like Tutankhamun. But the new exhibit that's coming, they try so hard to not make these Africans, and that's part of the legacy, the racist legacy of early Egyptology that Sheikh Anta Diop critiques in the African origins of the African origins of civilization, myth or reality. And so when you go to these places and you look at the Greeks get their gods. I mean, W.E.B. Du Bois, anybody who writes, about these areas, African-centered writers in particular, point out that the Greeks got the names and the characteristics, the qualities of their god from the Kemites. How do you do that? How do you get the names of your gods from another people? These people had it better. And they said, wow, what is this called? They're saying this to the Egyptians. Look at Atlantis. What is Atlantis? Atlantis comes out of Kemet. Atlantis was, and this again, Sheikh Anta Diop does a wonderful job in civilization or barbarism. He has a small chapter about the Atlantis myth. The Kemites, the ancient Egyptians, told the Greeks, they said, your ancestors come from Atlantis, which was destroyed. And then they moved from Atlantis to Greece. This is what the Egyptians told the Greeks. And so what is Atlantis? There's this island in the Mediterranean called Santorini that exploded in about 1450 BC. And that was the Atlantis. That exploded and it created a lot of things. In the middle of the 18th dynasty, it creates a sense of change of religion. It leads to Akhenaten in some ways in Kemet. Akhenaten leads to Moses. Moses leads to the Hebrew thing, which leads to the Bible. All of this, and Tutankhamun, all these guys were in the same place. And so we're looking at this integration, historical dynamics coming out of and being centered in Egypt. This was still 700 years before the Greeks.
That good enough, Jamie?
You mentioned Sheikh Anta Diop a couple of times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you agree with Atlantis?
Atlantis is a myth.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
He said Sheikh Anta Diop wrote about it with the Atlantis myth. You might have heard him say that part. But then he talked about this place called Santorini that blew up an island. You know what I'm saying? But you don't hear Kemet ever talking about Atlantis. The Greeks, dude named Solomon, say that a Kemet dude told him that about the Atlantis. So they call it the Atlantis myth in the closest name, and that's around 1400 BC or something like that. Ain't nothing older than Kemet.
No, but see, you ever so you familiar with Madame Blavatsky and her teachings, right?
Yeah,
And so that's what she teaches. She was teaching that the superior race came from Atlantis.
right. But they'll put Atlantis prior to Egypt when they
Right.
do it.
And so they were saying that Atlantis predates Egypt.
Right.
And that's why I said, nah, I ain't gonna better rock with that.
Right.
Because I mean, yeah, but yeah, I mean, all right, so because it sounded like he was just teaching that's I don't know. That's why I said I might be wrong. Hope I'm wrong.
Right. Now, when you start saying Geop covers it. And, I think civilization and barbarism. So he's really quoting Geop.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Hey, you unmute yourself.
Yeah, I like that he read out of the book too, man, and pointing that out. We knew what he read, but I'm glad he brought that out and showed, some kind of visual, because he didn't show any visuals up there, but he was speaking on point to me, man, and glad I got to show you guys somebody you didn't know. And I
Hey, that
think
was
it was comparable information too. So
yeah, because I like I said, I like the brother though. I like it. Yeah, he ain't said that. I mean, shit, he did. He teaching. That's good. That's good shit, man. Good
Yeah,
shit
he was
as
on point.
always.
He was on point.
I must have misunderstood him on that part.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
Civilization of barbarism, right?
right. Yeah, I knew
Yeah.
you had them. Jamie got a couple of them too.
Yeah,
You have to read that though. Yeah,
I got the one
the Myth of Atlantis. I can't see it big enough.
Myth of Atlantis restored to historical science through
Radiocarbon
radiocarbon
analysis.
analysis. Yeah.
Right.
Right. And then you see where it says explosion.
Explosion of.
Uh,
We can almost see it. Just read it. Just read it.
No, one more time.
Oh yeah, you try not to talk though. You put it back up there. Go a little higher. Explosion of the island
Explosion of
of
the island of
Santeria,
Santorini,
Santa Terini, and
Cyclades in
Cyclades, and
1420 BCE.
right,
Right.
right,
And Geop dealt with the evidence that they had. So that way, when it's an Atlantis myth, but I was always interested in that too, because they kept saying it predated Egypt, and that
Yeah.
even the people from Atlantis came to Egypt and all this kind of goofy shit. You know what I'm saying? So, no,
That's
no.
goofy shit.
Yeah, and then and then like I
Gerald said
said,
all this other goofy shit.
yeah, it was Madame Blavatsky and what's his name, man? The other crazy nutcase. Uh they whatever it was, they yeah, yeah, hold on. Yeah, whatever it was, they had to. That's where the superior race came from, and and it was the superior white race, and
Yeah,
all this kind of stuff, man. That and that's where they came from, Atlanta, or Atlantis.
yeah,
Sorry, came from Atlantis and Mu. And don't forget, we can't leave out Mu. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? They came up from both of them.
yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And so they predated Kemet, Nubia, all them. All they, he was way older than all them. You know what I'm saying? And they was and so that's where they came from.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's where they came from. So yeah, that's
All these places that sunk under the water.
yeah, sunk up under the water. Just like other civilizations has sunk up under
Mm-hmm.
the water, but ain't nobody ever found this great civilization. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? That's sunk up under the water.
Mhm.
It's something crazy there, man. But I mean, that's their story. They tell it how they want to, man.
No, but that brother was on point. He real thorough, you know. And, I enjoy listening to him, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Me too, man. Like I said, yeah, I like the brother though. I like his information. He got good information. Good.
Yeah,
He a good teacher, man. Good teacher,
yeah,
man. And he teach Africana study. somewhere.
Yeah.
So that's what's up, man.
Yeah, African centered is always the way to me.
And that's
He
where
definitely was that. Yeah.
that's where Jabari came from. Jabari came from that from Africana studies.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, good. Hey, good show, Unc. Hey,
Good show, huh?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, good show, man. Like I said, hey, Unc always come through, man, when we need him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He always locked and loaded, as he say. All that's his words. He says he's always locked and loaded, which he is. And
Yeah.
we can always depend on the brother, man. Uh,
Yeah,
like I
y'all had me
said,
shaking. Y'all had me shaking like a mini bike a little bit.
no, man, no, you good, man. You know, anytime, man. That's you know, yeah, like I said, man. Listen to that brother, man. He a master teacher, man. He teacher,
Yeah.
man. You know what I'm saying? Can't argue with him, man. But yeah,
Glad
uh,
you guys appreciated it, man. You know, that's what makes that's another component of what makes this research and having interest and interest enough to provide provisions of well, what me or anyone would find. You know, these are the results that we can get. You know, and even if it's a humbling experience of learning, you know, that shit don't work over here. You know what I mean? Or like you guys said, you agree with it. So, I commend you guys for, the teaching me, man. Just put it plain, so and being so goddamn consistent, man. And like you see Gerald's library back there, that's sick. That motherfucker locked and loaded. And
hey, man,
and anybody else that's just watching, that's just a fragment. And then you got Eric, he got books locked and loaded. Jamie got crazy books locked and loaded.
Yeah.
hey,
No, that was straight Sankofa. He was going back to the source. And that's what it was about. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna have to get up out of here after I
Yeah,
finish
yeah,
my little
yeah,
piece.
yeah. We got to get
But
up out of here too, man. Hey,
yeah,
man, glad you
that
home,
was straight
Gerald.
that was straight Sankofa. Going back to the source.
That
You
was
know what I'm
straight
saying?
Sankofa, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
that's right.
And he was on it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And when you see any of them on it like that, it attracts you to them. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, yeah.
and again, when you see something like that, you say, I want to be like that. I want to be able to answer any question thrown my way. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
So
right.
it goes deeper than maybe I needed to. He was like, hey, man, I'm living this. That brother was going deep.
Yeah, he go
Yeah.
in, man. Any question, man. So that was impressive, very impressive. Just like any of the master teachers, though, man. They ask questions. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like and they know it. They know it because they go in and explain it. You know what I'm saying? And that's just beautiful, man. And I love it. I love it, man. Lectures is my favorite. I love lectures. You know what I'm saying? From any of the teachers, man. I love listening to their lectures. Uh, and I listen to them over and over and over and over again, King. I mean, I've done that. So, I've been doing that. I listen to them over and over again. All the ones that I could find. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, man.
That's a good one.
You
Good
know,
one.
it's important for us. Very important for us to know thyself, to know our history, family. We gotta know our history, man. That's what's gonna keep you from being tricked, right? Into any of this, anything that they try to push out there to you, man. Any religious thing, man. You know, any cultist type thing, man. Listen, man. If you just listen, follow the historical data, just follow it, and it goes back far, man. You just got to be willing to look past slavery. You got to be willing to look, before slavery, way before slavery, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about when when we had pharaohs, when there was pharaohs out here. All I'm saying is if you know the history of these the historical data, man, the real history, no one can spring a a god on you, man. You know what I'm saying? You don't want nobody to push no God on you, man, or no religious figures on you, man. Right? So and if you know the history, you will see right where them people, where them gods and all them come in at. You see where they got invented at and where they got voted in at. You'll see where all that it came in at, man. And no one would better fool you with that. Now, it's okay to believe. If you like to believe, it's fun. It's fine. You know what I'm saying? It's fun to believe sometime, man. You know what I'm saying? I watch I
And let
watch
Gerald get let Gerald get up out of here
yeah,
before.
yeah,
Somebody,
go ahead,
anybody.
Gerald.
Yeah,
Y'all
yeah,
keep
yeah,
going though. Keep going,
yeah. We
man.
good. We good, man. I see you, man. Much love to you, King.
Yeah,
All right.
peace, King.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Hey,
Love you,
yeah,
Gerald.
I'm just saying, man, like, I enjoy comic, Marvel comics sometime, man. I watched Spider-Man and Deadpool, Venom. You know what I'm saying? They're fun, man. It's all that kind of stuff is good. It's fun, man. It's all right. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to believe, if you want to believe, that's okay, man. You know what I'm saying? But when you get down to the real history and the real reality, when we come out of the belief thing and we want to know, right? Hey, man, it's out here. All we got to do is just tune in to Sankofa, man. That's all you got to do, man. Sankofa 180 degrees, baby. We'll take you there, man. We'll take you there, man. We'll take you there, man. If you don't like to read or whatever, man, we'll take you there. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
we'll take you there, man. I mean, if you don't want to read it, you don't got no time for it, man, and look, man, throw us on, man, and we'll walk you through it, man.
And then if you got some questions, man, don't come with no monkey shit, man. Some comedy shit, man. And you're welcome. Come on here, man. And then let's build. You got questions, you got data, you then drop it. You know what I mean? But we ain't playing over here, man.
I like
So we
comedy
ain't got.
too. I like comedy too, but
Yeah,
boy,
Jamie like comedy. I ain't playing with your ass. So
I like
do it. Step in at whatever you want to do, man.
and I want to
Jamie gonna support and play with it a little bit. I'm gonna chop your ass up.
okay, so I want to shout out. I want to bring bring some attention to Lwandiso.
Yeah. And we want to give a shout out to I meant to say this when Eric was on, man. Eric got his solar return coming, man, and he got to some really good events that he gonna take part in, man. I'm really proud of that cat, man, and excited for him.
For sure, for sure.
Go ahead.
I just want to bring to the attention of Lwandiso, my Kenyan. I think he's from Kenya, from from Africa. I was supposed to debate him again today, family. This is the third time now you done ran from me. You could run, but you can't hide. I'm gonna find you.
I'm gonna find
Yeah,
you.
I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna
find you.
find you.
Right? You can run, but I'm gonna find you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude got some
Yeah.
good topics to bring up, man. You know what I mean? He got some good topics, but he ducking and running, man. Like I told Jamie, he a setup artist, and he ain't got to play like that, man. Come on and let's get it, man.
He put up a good fight. He put up a good fight when when we typing. You know what I'm saying? He puts up some. I mean, he likes to move the goalposts, but if we stayed on topic, you know what I'm saying? Because pretty much, bro, I'm gonna run you off every time. Because like I've told so many people that come, you know, to these different forums, that you can only bring so much belief to the table, man, before you run out of gas, man. You know what I'm saying? Belief don't last long, bro.
Putting
Right?
down the road.
It just don't, man. It don't last long, man. So so it's
Uh,
best to just keep your belief to yourself. But if you feel like you got then hey man, I'm willing to, you know, any subject. Come on in, man. And bring a friend. Bring a friend, man.
come on in, come on in, come on
Yeah,
in.
come on in. Bring a friend, man. Yeah, bring a friend for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, man. But yeah, we out, man. Peace. What you got to say? What you think?
Hey man, I'm just gonna drop it on that platform too, man. This one and People just be encouraged to come on and join in, man, and let's like the Bible said, let us reason together, man. I don't necessarily use that term, but it's familiar to you. Just like, you guys use Greek names for our natures, and I straighten that shit out. I'm using our name. So what I'm saying is, come on in and get out of that alien education, man. You can bring
Right.
the alien education, but we're gonna fill you with our education, right?
That's right. That's right, man. And to the BK apologists.
Oh, he definitely don't want no smoke. And that dude Sterling,
My brother, the BK apologists.
Hey, and that dude that got exposed. He tried to be on there anonymous, and he done got exposed. I ain't gonna rip him all like that with his name and shit, but it's out there. And another aspect of his life, he tried to hit me on, and he exposed his own shit. So, quit playing, man.
Hey, so yeah, man. Shout out to all shout out to y'all, man. All right, man. Listen, man, we out, man. You all right, cool? You all right, King?
I'm good, man. I'm
All
good,
right,
man. I
man.
love fucking around with you, boy.
Yeah, I'm just gonna play around with them, man. I know they ain't, they like to throw rocks and hide their hands, man. That's what they do.
Right,
That's
right.
exactly what they do. That's exactly what Sarnetta and Jabari said. They throwing rocks and hiding their hand, and
Yeah,
that's what they do. Uh, I just think that they got down like that, bro. I mean, I've seen Vocab Malone. He go in with anybody. Hey,
right.
you got something to say about Christianity. Hey, he ready to go with you. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And he'll debate you. He'll
He ain't
debate
gonna
you.
run. He ain't
He ain't
gonna run.
running. No, and so that's why I thought that they all was like that. You know what I'm
No.
saying? To claim to be a Christian apologist, I'm thinking that, hey, well, shit, I know that you ain't gonna run because I know y'all, one of the dudes that I know, Vocab Malone. Hey, he rough with it. He tough. I'm not gonna take nothing from him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He know the Bible. He does.
He ain't running nowhere. But
Yeah, he not gonna he not gonna run.
he
He
running
not.
to the flame.
Yeah, he gonna
Yeah.
and he chased and he'll run a Hebrew Israelite down. He'll run him down.
Right.
Run
Right.
him down, King. He shuts him down, and I give that to him. You know what I'm saying? And I thought that, what I mean, if you claim to be a apologist, you should be holding up that some kind of standard. You know what I'm saying? Like, when somebody challenges you, you're supposed to come on in and swing it, right?
Yeah, and at the same time, man, though, we as just people, man, we need to be teachable, right? We don't have
Right.
to. We can absorb some of this stuff that is factual instead of trying to put out that indoctrinated stance when it holds no water, right? So that's just a greater aspect of the humanistic provisions, man, that are
Yeah.
being shackled, held under an umbrella, kept abroad just for somebody to keep their identity. And that's poisoning our people, right? Even if it was on our side and we weren't willing to look at okay, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Problem is you can't make sense out of nonsense,
That's
right?
right, man.
So, it's kind of difficult over here on Sankofa to bring that. So not
Well,
from us, but from other people that come in. So, we welcome all people and we're teachable,
that's right, man. Come on in and show us what you're talking about. But again, the key word is show us, right? Don't talk us, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, man, you all are welcome. Come and join us. We have this platform for any and everybody to come and discuss your differences, man. Anybody. Come on in. You want to settle a difference with me, the brother, or whoever. Come on in, man, and we'll we'll put it together for you.
yeah,
You know
we
what I'm
got that. We
saying?
got that work for sure.
Yeah, man, we'll put it together for you, man. So just so anybody that want to come on in, man, you all are welcome, man. You all are welcome. All right. All right, man. Just you know, and we just ask to be respectful, man. That's all. You know, that's it. But other than that, man, we out, man. Anything else?
I'm good, baby boy. I'm good.
All right, family. Just like I said, man, just pay attention, man. First Sunday every month, we got a children's book read, man. Pay attention to that. It's coming up again. So just let us know, man, how join us, get the kids together, man, and come on in and get some of this real history, man. All
Yeah,
right, family. We love
yeah,
y'all. Like, subscribe, share, give us a comment, let us know what you think, man. All right?
yeah,
All right, man. Appreciate you, man. We out.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, hold on.